First of all, I'm going to say congratulations again to you. You're going to be sworn in tonight. How does that feel?
Oh, I'm ready to take on the job. The statute says that my term begins today. It always begins on the first Monday of the new year, and because of the things about the retirement benefits, Ron wanted to leave before the first day of the year, so we had an interim prosecutor for 3 days, and so I'll deal with things from this point on. I spent time talking to staff today, and I spent time dealing with a stack, and I do mean a stack of different things that Ron gave to one of my staff and saying, oh, by the way, these are things you need to pay attention to right away. So it'll be an interesting time.
What are you most looking forward to?
I hope to be able to make a dent in the homicide numbers here in Franklin County. It's distressing, obviously, and every time you see something like the father that killed his two daughters and then turned a gun on himself, I'm not sure how you prevent something like that other than just not letting him have a gun in the first place. And I don't know how much luck we can have on reducing the number of firearms in Franklin County, but I hope over 4 years I can make a dent in that.
Yeah, I looked last night, and the city of Chicago has 4 homicides so far this year, and the city of Columbus has 5.
Yes. Yeah. And now Chicago, I worked in Chicago 2 different summers, and they will find a way to pass us on that number between now and the end of the year. But we are having entirely too many. And okay, I'm an old guy. I can remember when people got in a disagreement, they didn't feel they were just dissed and ended up grabbing a gun. They got in a fist fight and somebody got a bloody nose or a hurt jaw, and that was about it. So I'm hopeful that sometime over this year, with the help of some of the clergy and some of the others, we can get people to just stop pulling out guns and just because they feel like they were, dissed, that it's okay to end up shooting people.
I know you probably can't go into a whole lot of specifics, but you do plan on making some changes to the office, to some of the personnel. Can you talk to me about some of the changes that I think have already been in the works with the turnover that we may see in the office?
Well, my way of managing the office is going to be a little bit different. I don't view my job as being a trial lawyer or being a trial prosecutor. I view my job as being an office manager for a very large firm. I mean, there's 300 people or so that work for this office. And I don't need to end up seeing my face on the TV or in a newspaper to feel like I'm a success. A success is managing the 100-some lawyers and the miscellaneous staff to handle the cases fairly and expeditiously, and to let the people in the county feel that their case has been fairly heard. We've had entirely too many cases where I think one population, especially the Black population, feels that maybe their case wasn't fairly heard if the person who shot them was a police officer. So I'm going to try to address these things.
I want to ask you about that. When we talked right after you were elected, you had said you ran because not enough police officers were being prosecuted for shooting and killing Black men. We've had 2 fatal law enforcement involved shootings in the month of December. How do you feel you plan on proceeding with those cases? And do you still stand behind those comments?
I stand behind the comments, and I happen to believe that we need to get the message out. I mean, 95% or more of the police officers go through a career and never shoot anyone. We need to get the message out that if you do succumb to the temptation to shoot, then we will end up penalizing you, maybe even sending you to prison, because obviously the average police officer does not want to end up going to prison where they will be spending time with folks they may have put in prison themselves. So I am very hopeful that we can get people to think twice before they pull out a gun. And it's only recently with the different kinds of pictures taken by cell phones and other things that the officers realize that what they do is going to result in a crime or a criminal conviction. And that's something we have that may cut down on some of the shootings.
I have to ask you about that choice of words, temptation. Do you think officers are choosing to shoot, or do you think they're doing it to protect their own lives?
I think that they believe they're doing it to protect their own lives, but it is still a choice. The most recent shooting that's now being handled by BCI, the man holds up a cell phone, and one hand isn't seen, but the officer goes forward and shoots him, and I think it may have been much more than once or twice. So I think it is important that people realize that don't just jump to pulling off a round or two, even if you think there might be some danger. So that case is being handled by the Attorney General's office. That's the City of Columbus has a contract with the Attorney General's office to investigate that, and we'll see how it all comes out. But that case in particular, everybody who watches the video tries to figure out what was the woman thinking when she pulled out a gun, and that woman, actually the man, thinking when she pulled out the gun and shot repeatedly.
Do you plan on, obviously, with the Andre Hill case that's already been transferred out of the office to BCI, to Attorney General Yost's office? Do you plan on doing the same thing for the FCSO involved shooting involving Casey Goodson, or do you plan on changing venue for that one?
Well, the problem with the FCSO case is that I both have to prosecute crime and I have to protect the sheriff's office. So I don't think there's any debate that at some point in time I will have to end up finding someone to handle the case for the prosecutor's office, because I can't both protect the sheriff's office and pursue the sheriff's office at the same time.
What is your number one goal, and what is your thing you think is going to be the biggest hurdle and biggest challenge in taking this position on?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be reducing the number of guns and the amount of gun violence in Franklin County, and it keeps growing. I mean, when I first started to run, there was one number, and then the last half of the year, we've just had shooting after shooting after shooting. And I think we've got to get people out of the mindset that that's the way to solve a problem. So I think gun violence in Franklin County is probably going to be the single biggest challenge.
And how do you handle that, sir? Do you prosecute those who are caught with guns? Do you try to press on Columbus Police and the Sheriff's Office to confiscate more guns? How do you go about addressing that issue?
Well, yes. One, if you arrest somebody with a gun, you try to find a way so that gun doesn't go back out on the streets. And that's maybe needs some careful consideration by the crime labs and some of the others. The biggest problem is just that we've got to deal with the mindset that says, I feel disrespected, so therefore I can shoot somebody. And we've got to end up getting rid of that, and getting rid of the idea that shooting folks is a solution as opposed to something that makes a situation worse.
I've done a handful of stories in the last couple of months with some people who are accused of attempted homicide, getting out on bond, sometimes lowered bonds because they aren't afford the right to a speedy trial. But those people have been accused of a very serious crime, lots of times using guns. Do you think those people ought to be kept in jail, or do you think that they should be released on bonds?
Well, each situation is a little different, but I think frankly that if you're charged with murder, which is purposely causing the death of another, then you should end up facing a prosecution and facing a conviction. So I'm concerned when cases don't go forward. But part of the concern right now is that we've got so darn many of these. I don't know if the prosecutor's office is going to be able to handle all of them promptly. And we have a speedy trial statute in Ohio that says that if you are in jail on a charge, that your case has to be heard within 90 days. Well, now that can be extended for various and sundry other reasons. But 90 days for a murder case is not very long for the prosecution to get ready to try it and to impanel a jury and then to try the case. So maybe we need to do some things about dealing with the speedy trial statute also. The other thing is the legislature has just made murder convictions more complicated by basically saying that if you think you're in danger, even if you weren't in danger, that's a situation where you can shoot somebody. The changes the legislature made in this statute, if you really read them and then think about what that means on the streets, those are very distressing changes to the Ohio law.
What will you be thinking about, and who will be with you tonight as you're being sworn in?
We've just invited people who want to come. Now again, we got to keep it 9 or under. So
as far as your family and your friends, your close group,
they'll pick it up on Zoom or pick it up on another thing, and they'll know that I care just as much for them whether they're there or not. I don't think that. I mean, you can't have only 9 people and include all your friends when you're involved in politics. So they understand and they'll deal with it.
What will you be thinking about as you're sworn in tonight, sir?
What can I do to make things better in Franklin County? What can I do to cut down on the number of homicides and the number of shootings? That's really, especially over the last couple of weeks, the thing that is most important to me.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Is there anything else that you want to add? Anything that I have forgotten to ask you?
Oh, we could talk for a long time, but thanks. You've dealt with the high points. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And hey, I know you don't like doing these things, but I really hope you continue. It's very helpful in us in doing our jobs and getting the message out. So,
well, that's how we get the word out to folks, and you folks provide us a major service. So we need to cooperate within reason. Doesn't mean I'll answer all your questions on circumstances, but
we get that.
I'm quite willing to do my best on that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Have a good one. Enjoy tonight.
You too.